Hi all, so I'm just going to show you the two different setups on an Inkle loom, and once I've explained the setups and the differences, I will then do a pickup pattern on both of these, but I'll do them as separate videos, so you'll find a link somewhere up here, I think it will be, to point you to the direction of each one of these videos. This one will have a pattern and this one will have the alphabet. They are two different setups, so they will look different and they work differently. So I wanted to show you the differences between them so you can then choose which setup you need for the type of work you're doing. This one is smaller purely because I'm using a different pattern, so I don't need as many pattern strands as this one, which is why this one's much wider. But you can have them narrower or wider, any size, whichever suits the pattern that you're doing. And I will explain how to use a charter pattern, but basically you'll get something like this. And each one of these squares represents a pattern thread. And that's how many, in this case, I'm using this colour here for my pattern thread. And you do that many pattern threads that match whatever the width of your pattern is. So for this one, it's only going to be, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 pattern threads. Sorry, I couldn't remember how many I've done. So this one will have a 10 pattern width, whereas this one here has 13, so it's a little wider. So the 10 would only be that wide. This is the pattern I will be doing on this one. And I'll be doing the alphabet on this one, so I don't think we need to see what that looks like until I'm doing it. This one is really good for straight lines, produce nice crisp lines, whereas this one works well for diagonal. So let me show you the different setups. On this one here, you can easily see the pattern pieces, and what it is my shed is in the open position at the moment. The non-heedled ones are pushed down, so these are all the heedled ones, and we go my hand here. You can see here we have the edge ones. Let's go in a bit more. Okay, so here we've got the edge on both sides, so just separate them off. They're the edge ones, and these ones here are the pattern threads. As you see, as I said, I'm going to be doing a 10 patterned alphabet, so there are 10 threads there. And then if I bring the shed up, you can see these, obviously there's a few edge threads in that too, and then the rest of these are your background threads, so they'll be what's in use when this is up. And then when you're doing the patterning thread, if you don't need that pattern, it will disappear down and your edging will come in. See, so you know, as you drop one you don't need, it goes down. But I'll show you more on how to do the actual picking when you do it. But the setup for this one is really simple. If I bring them all lined up a minute, best I can. Okay, so you've got your edges. Now that's as many edges as you choose to put on. In my case I've got 5 on this one, but you could put more, you could put less, it's a personal choice. But after you've done your edges, if we just hook them out the way a minute and then line up. Now it's a bit harder to spot the blue ones, the background threads, because the pattern threads are thicker. It is best to work with a thicker pattern thread and a thinner background thread. So you can just see them in there, but what the setup is one background thread, one pattern thread, one background thread, one pattern thread. So you see how it goes? There's always one pattern thread and one background thread to each piece. So they are in there, if you can see. There. They just get a little swished around, but they're all there, see? So, you go in closer. Oop, that's a little too close, it doesn't want to focus. There we go. So if I can kind of spread it out a bit, can you see there's the pattern thread and the background thread for each one. The background thread is there. So each one has that, and that is the simple setup. You'd wrap go the other way. So when you're doing this one, you'd wrap your edge threads, and then once you've wrapped your edge thread, you do one pattern thread, one background thread, one edge thread, one background, one edge, all the way along, and then when you've got the amount of pattern threads you need, you do your edge threads. And I'm back. I may have minced my words there. Edge thread, background threads, pattern threads, and edge threads. Okay, so each pattern thread has a matching background thread, and you'll just wrap one at a time round. If I can pull this forward, all I've done is here is just these two ends. So that's the two ends to the pattern threads, and the two ends to the edge and background threads, and they're just tied across roughly, sort of in the middle, but as I've done a bit of weaving it's evened it out, because the first part of weaving will always be your waist edge, where you line everything up into the correct positions. So all you do is wrap your one colour and then hold that down here where you wrap your next colour, bring that back round, hold that one down, and then wrap the first colour. So you don't need to snip every colour, you just have to secure one out of the way where you wrap one, and then secure that one to wrap the next one. So it's no different than wrapping this with one colour, you're just swapping the colour every so often. If you're not sure how to warp up an Inkle loom, please do check out my first video, which I will also link somewhere, which will show you how to do it. And the only difference is that you're changing colours every other row on this. Once you've done your edge, you change every other row. So that is your basic plain weave setup for doing patterning, and I will show you how this works. I mean, you can see a little bit here, but I will show you the difference between this one and this one in a second. So that's that one done. Now this one is a slightly more complicated setup. This one's much longer, so I've got to manoeuvre around my tripod, so it's going to have to be a slight angle, I'm sorry about that. But this one, if I put my shed open at the moment, you can see we've got the pattern threads and we've also got the background threads. And then if I put the shed down, so the heedles are the one on the top here, you can see again we also have the background threads and the pattern threads. These are mixed, and the reason why is if I just line them all up, as before we have the edge threads. So if we just take, again you can do as many edge threads as you want, so if we just take them out of the way a minute, and then what you'll notice when we line them all up is here we have two background threads, then we have a pattern thread, and then we have two background threads, and then a pattern thread. And this follows along all the time, so two background, one pattern, two background, one pattern, so they're all in there. So if I can get it to line up properly for you a minute, if we separate off to one side, because it's the same line up no matter which way around you do it, so if I can just line it up. There you go. So can you see you've got a pattern thread, you've got two background threads, one pattern thread, two background threads, one pattern thread, two background. So you get fed up with me saying that, won't you? But it's the same in whichever shed you're in, you'll have the same setup. So just line them up properly a minute. You can see, so pattern, two background, pattern, two background. And this, you will wrap the same way, but this time round, when you're doing your wrap, after you've done your edging, you'll wrap two of your background thread, then you'll wrap one of your pattern threads, then two of your background, and you just wrap around. So again, you don't need to tie off and change colour each time, just secure it down, because it doesn't matter if, I'll just go down here, it doesn't matter if they cross and get higgledy-piggled here, because this bit won't be part of the finished product, it will be cut off. And you will sew over the bit where you've just secured it. So it doesn't matter if these are a little higgledy-piggledy and crossed over when you tie them. Just see, I've tied them here, and they're all tied, even the ones on this side are tied over here. But once you've done that little bit of weaving, it evens up and you don't actually spot it. So it doesn't matter that this bit is crossed over, just secure them, tie them in the middle, and then when you weave, they'll find a comfy position over to the side. Okay, so I can just realign all this without knocking the tripod too much. Come back out. Ooh, out, not in. Okay, so I will show you the difference between the setups from doing a plain weave. You can sort of see them here, but I'll just show you. So if I work out where I was last when I done this a minute. Okay, so we need the open sheds up. I'm still using a ruler as a little beater. I don't have a proper one. You don't need to, it doesn't matter. So we're just doing the basic plain weave, no pickup at this point. So we're just going through. If you don't know how to weave, then look at my first video, show you how to walk, because it taught you how to do the beginning weaves. Now this one's a bit complicated because this thing here is always in the way and it's annoying. So it's best to work from at this point here, but I've just got them down there, other way. I'll try shifting them up a bit. I moved it down when I was showing you how to do that. There we go. So I had them open, so now we're going to go down. So the heedle, this is the heedled row now. Just push down your last one so it stays in and go back through. So see, all we're doing is just doing the basic plain weave of up and down, opening and closing that shed. No complicated manoeuvring or anything, and you can see the pattern it's creating. Try to keep your piece reasonably even when doing this. So keep the tension reasonably well and squish down. But you can see there, that's the edging that you get just by doing a plain weave on this setup. This is known as the speckled. I come in a little. There. See, so that takes no manipulation whatsoever. The setup will give you that pattern straight away, and that's a pretty pattern and looks great on straps. I've used them for handbags and things, they're really good. So it's really nice and simple pattern to do just from that. But I will show you a pickup pattern in a bit. But if I just show you the other one now, let's just slide that one out of the way a bit. So this one, you see, creates this, and again I'm just doing the same thing. So I just find out which shed I was in a minute. Okay, so we're in the open shed at the moment. Now I'm self-taught, so my terms may be wrong, but you'll get the gist of it, and that's all that matters. So we're just going back and doing with two in close proximity here is really hard. I recommend only working on one beside you at the time. So just pulling it through, and then so now this shed obviously is, in my case, the heedled shed, has all my pattern threads in it. I'll just do the basic plain weave, nothing spectacular. And then go together, so you can see how they switch positions, and this is what's creating this gorgeous lined effect. So see, so it's all set up, so that's lined. So there's no, let's just do one more to get this the other side so it's out of my way while we're filming, shall we? So poke that through there. There we go. So if I can just bring them both back in a minute. wrong way. I can manoeuvre that over a bit so you can see the difference. As I said, these are quite long, so they get in the way of the tripod. But see, so this setup creates these lovely lines, and this setup creates the speckled background. So each one creates a different look. So while you're patterning, any ones that are along the edges here, if you're not manoeuvring them, would stay in that pattern, and the same goes for this. But the background on the inside changes from this speckled to these lines. And I think they can both make very pretty bouts on their own, or straps, or whatever you want to use them for, but they also are really good for doing your patterning. So I'm going to end this video here, and then I'm going to show you in the next video how to do pickup on this one, and then later on I will show you how to do it on this one. Okay, so check back soon. Bye!